Alright. Hey guys, it's Philly X here with Confident Gamers, and I am here with
Mary Ratliff, director and producer of Good Game.
Awesome. Now, we were just in a panel here at Intervention, the 6-year Intervention in Rockville, Maryland, and we were learning about just your expertise and your experience with video production, and that's when you mentioned Good Games, and our ears perked up real quick. So we wanted to know, first, what was your inspiration? What inspired you to do this documentary?
So it basically came from, there were two things that sort of happened in quick succession. First, I actually, for the first time in my life, went to a bar to watch a traditional sports game. It was the U.S. versus Algeria in the World Cup in 2010. And there's this amazing goal by Landon Donovan towards the end of this particular game. And the bar I was at, the entire thing erupted. It was like this huge amount of energy and, you know, the chants of USA and all this stuff. And it was the first time I'd really kind of felt that at a traditional sports thing. I don't really follow it myself. And then not too long after that, there was an MLG event, Major League Gaming, and they were in D.C., and it was really close by. And it just happened to be my favorite StarCraft 2 player was coming back to the U.S. for the first time ever, Greg Idra-Fields, who was going to be back in the U.S. from Korea. And so I decided I was going to go. And when I went, I was feeling that same energy that I had felt in that bar. And I was like, there's a connection here. There's connective tissue. Like, there's something about these guys as athletes and about this as a sport and about this as a business. Because then I started wondering, like, you know, these guys are superstars. How much do they really get paid? And all that stuff. And so I just sort of sat back and started doing the research and kicked it into high gear after that.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned, StarCraft 2, and you've already been knowing this guy. So I'm assuming you either familiar with or play video games yourself?
Yeah, I've played video games for a very long time. You know, we had the Atari when I was little, so started out then. I ended up being more of a PC gamer almost by accident because, you know, we had the Atari, and then after that, my parents got a computer when I was 4, so 2 years later. And then after that, whenever a new console came out, my mom would just be like, but we already have a computer. So I never had a Nintendo or any of that. Yeah. I just grew up with computer gaming. But yeah, I was a big fan of StarCraft. It was actually a big part of how my husband and I, when we met, how we would date, because we were at different schools, so we would play against each other on Battle.net. He's much better than me, but anyway. And so then we started watching like the Korean StarCraft matches and everything and getting into it that way. So it just sort of snowballed.
Okay. Now, during the production of the film, I would say, like, what was most revealing about the gaming world to you, that experience?
Oh gosh, there were so many things. I think for me, it was really I had started to see that little bit of how these guys were like traditional athletes. And I think when I started really delving into sort of the business models and things and seeing that it really does run the same way as like maybe like a NASCAR team or something is a good comparison, but that a lot of the way that these people are running this as an industry is actually something that's very familiar. And so I started to look back and realize that there's actually like sports are a very familiar thing to an American audience, and gaming is becoming a very familiar thing. You know, we all have Candy Crush or mine, Frozen Free Fall's my bad one. We have something on our phones. You know, they're putting the Wii in senior centers and everything. Everybody's a gamer in America now. And so it's just sort of, I wanted to put those two pieces together and realizing that those two pieces already fit together really well. And there's also a little bit of interesting stuff in that we were covering StarCraft 2 when it first came out and what's happened with that and where that's kind of gone, because when we were doing it, everybody was talking about, like, is this a bubble? Is StarCraft 2 going to keep being the big thing? Is esports going to die? Like, what's going to happen? And, of course, esports has just gotten bigger, but now it's League of Legends and Dota. It's not StarCraft 2. So.
And that's the thing with what I've realized with the gaming world and Major League Gaming is that to me, like what I've seen, the atmosphere and the intensity doesn't change. It's just the games that are being played and that are, they're competing against.
Right.
Just keeps, getting different. Like, I think we were just at an event this past weekend, Super Smash Con, where, of course, the focus was Super Smash Brothers, but the intensity that these players had.
And the fighting games are a different atmosphere, too. Like, the StarCraft 2 players are a bit like chess players. There's a very big thing with them, and we get into it a bit in the film about manner. Because StarCraft originally, Brood War, became an esport in Korea, there's a few things that are sort of quirky to their world. Yeah. And one of them is manner, bad manner and good manner. And so they have this, like, they're supposed to shake hands before and after every match, and they're supposed to be very polite, and there's just certain things that you just do not do, and all this. And even the American players have had to be that way. But then you get somebody like Super Smash Brothers, and, like, these guys are going at it and then screaming at each other, and, like, it's very different. I mean, I guess it's a little bit like I don't know, like football fans are probably very different from, say, soccer fans
that's true.
or lacrosse.
Yep.
So
yeah, because we noticed, the crowd at Super Smash they were very excited, and especially the people spectating. Once the competitors hit the stage and they were actually being focused on and highlighted, and their fight was on the big screen, we felt like, they were being respectful to each other. They weren't like gloating with it and like, hitting each other.
Yeah.
They were respectful of each other. I was like, okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's a sportsmanlike conduct.
Yeah.
It's still there a little bit. I mean, there's a whole clip in ours with Idra and this one particular opponent that he won't shake his hand before and after the matches, and like everybody's like, oh, and it's funny. I just recorded the director's commentary for the film for a special edition, and that one scene, I wasn't sure if it was going to play to the average audience. I didn't know if it was going to work, if you were really going to understand what the problem was here. And it is inevitably every audience I've shown it to, like whether a gaming audience or not, when they're like, shake hands if you're going to, and Greg just turns and walks away, everybody's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, there's just a certain amount of decorum that people just expect, like even from the esports athletes.
Okay, and now, speaking of culture and what people expect, did you witness many female gamers?
It was very interesting. Basically, when we started, there were no professional female StarCraft 2 players. They just didn't exist. While we were filming, the first Korean female got signed to a team, but the Korean teams are actually pretty different from American teams. They've got kind of a B team, like a stringer kind of thing going on, where they'll have somebody that's signed to the team, but they're not playing in public.
Okay.
They're kind of practicing with them and everything, yeah. And if they get good enough, they'll get put up to the higher team. And I don't remember what happened with her. Actually, she sort of stopped being a topic of conversation. The final MLG event that we went to, at that point, there were 2 or 3 women that were playing, and there actually ended up being the first match with a woman on the main stage at MLG playing StarCraft 2. And just from the way that the brackets ended up, she was playing against like a top-tier Korean GSL winner. I mean, he wiped the floor with her. But it was kind of unfortunate that that's what they decided to do. But at the same time, it was great that at least people were paying attention.
Yeah.
I actually started to kind of toy with the idea of like bringing in that storyline of the women in the StarCraft 2 world. And it didn't gel. It was unfortunately one of the things that ended up on the cutting room floor. Yeah. Now, at this point, actually, I hesitate to say one of the best because I'm not sure what her most recent tournament wins are, but Scarlett had actually was cutting a swath through while we were in post-production. Okay. And I became a huge fan, and she was regularly beating a lot of people and winning championships. It was just fantastic to watch. So,
okay. Now, do you see yourself doing any more future gaming-related movies, documentaries, and
it's one of those things that usually what I'll say is it's not what I'm doing next.
Yeah.
But I never say no to anything because it's still a world that I'm very passionate about. I'm very geeky in general. I love conventions and gatherings and things like that where people can talk about sort of niche interests and all of that. And so I find those stories a lot because that's where I live. But at the moment, the sort of things I'm chasing are pretty different.
Okay.
Just to get a little
Keep
something else. Yeah, exactly. And it's, the other thing is that the gaming audience is very savvy when it comes to video production and YouTube and all of that stuff. They're already very media savvy, and they're creating their own media, which is fantastic. So I don't want to say that there's a glut. There's not. There's always room for more voices. But at the same time, I'm always looking for something where I can really contribute something unique or something different or that's not being said.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there that are saying a lot of great things right now. So I'm encouraging them instead of doing it myself right now.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So we talked about Good Game. So how can our followers find out about the movie, purchase the movie?
Okay, so Good Game, we have a website at goodgamemovie.com, and the movie is currently available, I think, on, at this point, 8 digital platforms. We just released on Steam. So Steam is there, VHX, Amazon, iTunes, a whole bunch of different places. And then if you go to goodgamemovie.com, you can also buy DVDs, and you can also get DVDs on Amazon.
Great. And then if they want to just follow any of your movies?
We've got, my website is 9hourfilms.com, and I'm also relatively active on Twitter at 9hourfilms. So
awesome.
And I love talking to people. I love helping other filmmakers. So people can tweet at me questions, comments, concerns. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much again for your time.
Thanks.